Okay, now we have a second set of speakers who will speak for just about a minute or two about what they're doing. Juliet Ocelli. Oh, okay. Juliet's from Freedom Road Socialist Organization.
Well, it's great to see you all, and this is kind of an odd mix, but that's okay, that's life. We're a group that's national. Like many groups, our best work is not in New York, but just a couple of interesting things I'll tell you. Tennessee, where people organize the workers on the state campuses, and several campuses in a right-to-work state, and now the governor is trying to contract it all out. And they're also dealing, like comrades in North Carolina, with a very big struggle against disenfranchisement, particularly of African American and other voters of color, with situations where when cities pass progressive laws, governments can nullify them, a thing that we deal with as well. And, you know, the whole thing of the 32 state legislatures where Republicans control both houses and now all three branches of the federal government. It's quite a synergy. So then I'll just make, and just cut me off when you need to, 5 points of orientation which kind of summarize things I think different people have expressed. So the 5 are: expect Trump to divide and conquer. Number 2, fight for both social and economic justice. Number 3, don't trash each other's forms of struggle. Number 4, fight in the streets, the suites, and in communities of solidarity. And number 5, exploit divisions among the ruling elite and make tactical alliances with them, such as Trump versus the intelligence and State Department establishment, probably divisions in the military around Mad Dog Mattis and that lunatic Flynn. We have to exploit all those kinds of contradictions. And really to try to reignite our consciousness of our internationalist duty, because I don't know what the F is going to happen, but it's not going to be good. So that was brief, right? I could go into each of these 5, but I think you get the idea.
Next is Ann Fawcett-Ambia, who's going to talk about Bay Ridge for Social Justice.
Hi, I live in Bay Ridge, which, as most of you probably know, has a very large Muslim community. Before Trump got started, there was an incident of a woman being harassed a couple of blocks from my house, and in response there was a community march, and at the end of it, the people met in a meeting hall in a church, and we got started. Now, since the Trump thing started, we've become much more organized. We're actually part of and affiliated with the Arab American Association of New York, which is located in Bay Ridge. At the moment, we have another march that we're planning on Martin Luther King Day, but one of the biggest issues that we're trying to address is the need for rapid response, which you don't get when you call 911, and as other speakers have pointed out, it's often not a good idea to call 911 anyway. And in the middle of a crime happening, what can you do? Well, there's this great thing that happened. A woman in Harlem got harassed on her way home from work on mass transit, and she put out a call for someone to accompany her. Within 3 days, there have been 8,300 responses to this, which is awesome. So Kayla Santos Suoso, who is working at Arab American Association and is one of the founders of Bay Ridge for Social Justice, is now working on an Accompany Your Neighbor program that's working with the 8,300 people, or part of us, and she's organizing a number of trainings, bystander intervention trainings. There have been 5 of them that she's organized so far. They've been booked solid as soon as they hit the press. So that's one thing that we're doing. Another thing that we're doing is trying to set up safe refuges for people who are being harassed, who are on the street, where they can go. And in light of that, what we're working on is trying to set up, working on developing posters. Well, this is my little non-artistic rendering for a first draft to take to the next meeting, to put in store windows offering refuge for people. Enter here if you're being threatened because of your race, gender, or religion. And we're hoping to expand from there, from storefronts to other places in the community. So anybody who lives in Bay Ridge or who wants to get involved in the Accompany project, and go to a training can contact Kayla at Kayla, that's her name, at Arab American New York and ArabAmericanNY.org. In addition, yesterday, Keith, who's going to speak after me, and I went to a hate crimes call to action meeting that was organized by Senator Jesse Hamilton. And this great woman was on the stage, Jenny DeBauer from the Center for Anti-Violence Education in Brooklyn, who also said that people can contact her. She's also got funding to organize bystander intervention trainings. And anybody who wants that information, I can give it at the end. Oh, it's Jenny at CAENY.org. Then because Keith and I spoke at the meeting yesterday, someone came up to us and told us that there is a rapid response network that's being established in Brooklyn, and you can get information from them on thebasebk.org. So these are the things that we're working on, and that's about all that I want to say, except that we're working on another point to this is, and this was made really clear at the hate crimes meeting yesterday, where people from agencies are on the stage, and their response is kind of, call 311, call 911, call do this, do that, none of which, I mean, I'm not saying people shouldn't, you should, things need to be reported, but in the meantime, what would it look like in New York City if we actually had support for programs that made people feel safe to walk on in our streets? And we have a couple of ideas on that line, but I'm going to stop talking now and let Keith talk next.
Okay, so we've introduced almost Keith Brooks from Occupy Kensington.
All right. I'm from Occupy Kensington. Kensington, I don't know if people know, it's a neighborhood where there's actually been a lot of spontaneous or seemingly spontaneous reaction to the hate crimes that have gone on. A group of people went to the subway stop, the F train, the other day with signs just like that. I'm not sure, if they were from Occupy Kensington or whatever. There were other people who have been out organizing. There's a group, Occupy Kensington's had meetings. The thrust of it is, twofold, as many of these things are. One is against tax on immigrants, and the other one is in relation to hate crimes. And there's a meeting this Sunday night. Sue, if you want to add to that for a minute. No? Okay. But the other thing is that just in the last few days of being active, and last week or so, of going to a intervention workshop and what's his name's Hamilton's forum yesterday, and a few other things. It's pretty amazing the extent to which there is rank and file organizing going on throughout the city, and you find out about it each time you go to a meeting. And so what some of us are proposing is the need for a citywide conference to discuss planning how to combat both the atmosphere through a public education campaign. You have the subways, you have the posters that says if you see something, say something. Well, it should include a tax on immigrants, a tax on women. The faces that are up there, there's no visibly Muslim woman. There should be somebody who's visibly immigrant worker, et cetera, et cetera. And just add to that, if you see something, say something, talk about harassment, talk about hate crimes, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing is that we should establish an understanding as to where safe places would be. For instance, the subway token booth, on the buses, in businesses like Ann referred to, having posters put up. This was done a number of years ago around, I forget what the issue was, but there's all sorts of public education that can be done to go against, especially in New York, the idea that Trump has any kind of mandate for his reactionary agenda. So we're floating the idea. I have a written proposal for a citywide conference at some point, create response networks, that there be public service announcements. I mean, these are all things that both involve grassroots, rank and file initiative, but also putting pressure on people who are in a position of power. For instance, the subways, and having a campaign there. So there's a lot more I could say, but I'll stop there.
Okay, thanks. Good thing. Okay, is Chris Butters here?
the Brooklyn Club of the Communist Party. I will, in respect for the time limit, I will leave out a lot of what I was going to say. What we do is we are involved in Black Lives Matter, Fight for 15, and other housing struggles. We've also worked on a lot of electoral campaigns, including so-called Trump country, which is not South Carolina or Georgia, but southern Brooklyn and Staten Island. I could tell you more about that. We're in a fight for our lives. I will leave out the reasons to not despair, which I think some of us have known about. We fight for a united front, which means an umbrella where we have disagreements, but we unite in action. We know we on the left can't defeat Trump and his program on our own, but neither can the Democrats or a coalition in which pro-corporate strategies are the leading action. And we think third parties, going for third parties right now, whether in 16 or 18 or 20, isn't an option. We support mass actions and protests, obviously the demonstrations in January, the militants of Standing Rock, which remind us of the sit-ins of the civil rights movement and the sit-down strikes in the 30s, and we are sure there's going to be a lot more need for Standing Rock for freedom of the press, defend constitutional rights, labor rights, healthcare, immigration rights. Here in Brooklyn, we are lucky to have City Council Person Brad Lander. I won't go into that because that was already spoken about, all his wonderful initiatives on behalf of immigrants under attack in Kensington and elsewhere. As New Yorkers, we believe we have a special responsibility to get out the word about Trump because we know better than anybody in the country what he stands for, his role, his disgusting role in the Central Park Five, his abuse of workers and suppliers, and last but not least, the stop and frisk policy, which he celebrates and wants to institute. We want to do everything we can to help make New York a real alternative to the Trump program. In that regard, we want to make sure that New York remains a safe haven for immigrants and their families, take measures to ensure that those who receive health care benefits under the Affordable Care Act are not stripped of coverage, taxing the rich, and climate change. A major obstacle that has not received enough attention is the disgraceful role of Governor Cuomo, who uses the so-called independent Democratic committee to play off pro-Trump Republican minority within the Democratic majority. We join in the Working Families Party and street actions to stiffen Schumer's spine, but also join to demand that the governor and the pro-Trump Republican-engineered legislative... Thank you. Don't mourn, organize. An injury to one is an injury to all, and resist and defeat the Trump program. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Our latest speaker is Kim Frasick from the Sane Energy Project.
And one of our phrases is, when the winds of change blow, some people build walls and others build windmills. And Sane Energy Project was part of a beautiful alliance last year fighting a liquefied natural gas port off the coast of the Rockaways called Port Ambrose, and we won. About a year ago, we won. So this is possible when we all strategically organize together and make Governor Cuomo move. We do know that Donald Trump is a big adversary to offshore wind, and to wind in general, and to renewable energy. Bringing renewable energy onto the wholesale market grid in New York State is a really great way to help us reduce our fossil fuel consumption. So, and we know that fossil fuel consumptions cross the path with racial and economic justice, all types of social justice, food justice. So we really want to work together to make a really big, broad base for offshore wind support. Today, as we are speaking right now, there are 6 bidders that are bidding on the plot of land off the coast of the Rockaways to develop this offshore wind farm. So it's actually coming, and it's coming before the Trump regime gets into power. So we're in a really positive position here. I have 2 flyers that are passed out there. One is a white flyer with our awesome slogan, "To Beat Trump," and there's talking points on the back of it and ways to get in touch with me. And then also there's a blue one because we have an action step. So this Tuesday, December 20th, the Long Island Power Association is having their monthly meeting. And they're going to be deciding on whether they want to start establishing a smaller pilot project off the coast of eastern Long Island. So we want to go out there and show the Long Island Power Association, which is a direct line to Governor Cuomo, that we really, as New Yorkers, want to build a renewable safe haven in New York State. We can actually do this. It's really doable, and it's actually going to happen, but we need all of us to get involved in this campaign because we don't want to just see renewable energy built. We want to see renewable energy built with justice. So we want to make sure our labor is local. We want to make sure our environmental justice communities are taken care of, and it offsets some dirty peaker plants. We can offset peaker energy that we're getting from Indian Point. There's all these things that we can do, so I really hope that you guys all get involved with the energy that's happening in New York State. And I hope to see you on December 20th. There's a bus leaving from Midtown, and we'll be back by 2:30.
Thank you.
Speak. I'm representing United Community Center in East New York, and it's a multi-generational organization, multi-service. We are doing immigration. We have been doing immigration for so many years. Early childhood, urban agriculture, and lately our organizing efforts has been around the rezoning in East New York. What we are doing is to try to make affordable housing for East New Yorkers. Most of you know that the city is going to be rezoning 15 neighborhoods across the city, and East New York will be the first one. East New York has been for many, many years what I call the last frontier, because most people thought of East New York the most affordable place, and maybe it's affordable for many people who do not live in East New York, but it's not affordable for East New Yorkers, and that's what we want to keep affordable for East New Yorkers. So we are pushing. In fact, we have a march last Saturday in which we brought down signs, and we have a press conference in front of Quick Evict, which is an organization that is harassing homeowners and pushing for them to sell. Many of them do not know they might be rich in equity in their homes, but really very poor in their pockets, and they have to make decisions that are really well informed. So we have a good response from politicians, but the fact is that we want to keep East New Yorkers as much as we can for East New Yorkers. And part of that is to make affordable homes, to make sure that homeowners, especially seniors, stay in their houses. And so it's not, again, East New York push. Again, like historically, East New York has been either overlooked, neglected, or pushed on the side. So now everybody's looking at East New York. We know that is what is happening in Bushwick. We know what is happening even in Brownsville. Forget it about Williamsburg. That's all news. But also, we are supporting what we call urban agriculture, urban gardening. And this Saturday, we are having another rally to save Valley Green, which is in Brownsville. It's a very nice piece of land that HPD already put aside for development. And so we are trying to do that type of organizing around Trump. We really do not know how to channel our energy. One, because internal capacity, and two, we really would like to hook up with other organizations, just do something to make more sense. But in the meantime, as an organization, we are trying to make more, to support more people to become US citizens, and we do that for free, but most important, to increase our voter registration and have our young people to go out and vote. And again, it's a reminding ourselves that the way we see New York City is not the way the rest of the country is. And that's the sad part. So, thank you.